The day humanity responded. Commander Ziek's talons clicked against the metal floor of the Thean flagship, a soft rhythm drowned out by the hum of the control systems around him. It was supposed to be a simple invasion. The Thean Empire, unrivaled in military strength, had subjugated planet after planet. Their warships were a terrifying symbol of their dominance, blotting out stars as they approached Earth. Yet, as Ziek stared out at the distant blue planet, he couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. "Sir," Lieutenant Sol called from his station, his voice tinged with confusion. "We're picking up something strange." Ziek narrowed his eyes. "Define strange." A massive banner unfurled in the atmosphere of Earth, the message clear even from the high orbit they held. "Welcome to the end of your invasion." The commander blinked. Humanity had refused to join the Galactic Council, rejected offers of integration, and now they were taunting the might of the Thean Empire. Audacity or madness, he thought, his claws curling into fists. "Commander, we've detected a massive energy build-up from the surface," Zol reported again, his eyes wide with alarm. "It's something beyond our technology." Ziek turned to face the view screen just as a sleek, black vessel erupted from Earth's atmosphere, dwarfing even the Thean's most formidable warships. Its shimmering hull reflected the galaxy's distant stars, and it moved with an elegance that felt wrong for such a large craft. This wasn't the primitive technology they expected. "Sir, incoming communication," Zol said, his voice shaky. The screen flickered to life, revealing a calm human face. "This is Admiral Hayes of the Terran Defense Force," the human said, his voice as steady as the stars. "You've chosen the wrong planet to invade." Ziek straightened. "Admiral Hayes, surrender now, and we may spare your people. Resist and you will face annihilation." A pause, then laughter, cold, unyielding. "You misunderstand, Commander. We're not here to negotiate. You're about to learn what happens when you underestimate Earth." Before Ziek could respond, the Terran vessel fired, unleashing a beam of pure energy that sliced effortlessly through the lead Thean battleship. Alarms blared as the battleship split in two, flames and debris scattering into the void. "Return fire," Ziek shouted, but even as the Thean warships opened fire, the human vessel danced through the barrage with deadly precision. More Terran ships followed, each one more advanced than the last, emerging from Earth's surface like the rising tide. Ziek clenched his mandibles. "All ships, fall back," he ordered. The word felt foreign on his tongue. Retreat. But the Theans had never encountered anything like this before. They needed to regroup, to strategize. The Thean fleet withdrew, battered and confused. Yet, the humans didn't pursue. They simply hovered in formation, as if daring the invaders to come back. On the surface, Admiral Hayes watched the Thean fleet retreat. "They'll return," he muttered, turning to his second-in-command, Captain Roar. "And when they do, we'll be ready." The Thean Empire's next move. The Thean flagship, Imperator, drifted in the darkness of space, far from Earth's orbit. Inside, Commander Ziek paced across the command deck, his mind racing with frustration. How had they underestimated the humans so drastically? Lieutenant Sol, now recovered from the shock of the battle, analyzed the data from the brief skirmish. "Sir, their technology, it's like nothing we've ever seen. They've been hiding their advancements." Ziek hissed softly. "Send word to the Emperor. We need reinforcements immediately. This is no longer a simple invasion. It's a war for survival." Even as the message was dispatched, doubt gnawed at Ziek's mind. What if reinforcements weren't enough? What if humanity had already surpassed them? It seemed impossible, yet the evidence was undeniable. Humanity's unexpected counterstrike. Admiral Hayes stood at the helm of the TDF Resolute, staring out into the vastness of space. The galaxy was quiet, but it wouldn't stay that way for long. The Thean fleet had been beaten back, yet Hayes knew it was only a temporary reprieve. Reinforcements would come, and when they did, they'd be stronger, more determined. He could feel the tension building in the air. This was only the beginning. "Sir, we're detecting large-scale hyperspace signatures," Captain Roar reported, his voice steady but edged with concern. "They're back." Hayes took a deep breath, his eyes narrowing as he watched the readings on the screen. Hundreds of ships, more massive than the last wave, blinked into existence on the outskirts of Earth's defense perimeter. The Thians weren't taking any chances this time. "All ships, stand by for engagement," Hayes ordered calmly. His voice betrayed no hint of fear or uncertainty. "We hold the line." The human fleet moved into position, their vessels forming a protective shield around the planet. Earth wasn't just any world. It was humanity's home, and they would defend it with everything they had. Each ship was a testament to the years of quiet preparation, to the relentless pursuit of technological advancement. They had hidden their true strength for too long, but now there was no turning back. As the Thean fleet drew closer, Commander Ziek stood aboard his flagship, the Imperator. His eyes locked onto the human fleet before him, and for the first time in his long career, he felt the weight of uncertainty. "They fortified their position well," Lieutenant Sol observed, analyzing the formation of the Terran ships. "They're not the defenseless creatures we thought." Ziak clenched his mandibles in frustration. "No," he admitted slowly, "they are not. But they will fall, like all the others before them." He turned to his crew. "Prepare for a full-scale assault. We will crush them this time." The Thian ships surged forward, their plasma cannons firing in unison. Streams of deadly energy hurtled toward the human fleet, but the Terran defense was ready. Shields flared to life, absorbing the onslaught with a precision that shocked the Thean commanders. Human ships responded with beams of concentrated energy, cutting through the Thean ships like a knife through water. On the Resolute, Hayes watched the battle unfold, his mind calculating every move. The Thians were powerful, their numbers overwhelming, but humanity had something they didn't: adaptability. Where the Theans relied on brute force and overwhelming firepower, humans thrived on strategy, on turning the tide in unexpected ways. "Admiral," Roar called out, "we've received confirmation from the Science Division. The new energy matrix is fully operational. We can deploy it at your command." Hayes' eyes gleamed with determination. The energy matrix was the result of years of secret research, a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. But it was untested in live combat. There was no guarantee it would work as planned. "Deploy it," Hayes said firmly. "Let's see if they're ready for what we've been working on." Across the human fleet, ships began to activate the energy matrix. At first, nothing seemed different. The Theans continued their relentless assault, and the Terran ships held their ground. But then, without warning, a brilliant wave of energy erupted from the human vessels, spreading outward in every direction. It was a blinding light, enveloping both human and Thean ships alike. For a moment, there was silence. The Thean fleet hesitated, unsure of what had just happened. But then the effects became clear. The energy wave had disabled every Thean ship within its reach, their systems shorted, their weapons offline. It was as if an invisible hand had reached out and neutralized their entire fleet. On the bridge of the Imperator, Commander Ziak stared in disbelief. His ships, his mighty war machines, were powerless. What have they done?" he muttered. "Sir," Lieutenant Sol said urgently, "we've lost all power. We're sitting ducks." Ziek's mind raced, searching for an explanation. This wasn't supposed to happen. They were the Thians, the conquerors of worlds. How had the humans managed to outsmart them? "Send a message to the fleet," Ziek ordered, his voice strained. "Retreat. We need to regroup." But before his message could be sent, a voice crackled over the intercom, clear and calm. "Commander Ziek," Admiral Hayes said, his tone steady, "this is your final warning. Retreat now, and we will allow you to leave in peace. Stay, and we will ensure your fleet never returns." Ziek's mandibles twitched with anger. He was a warrior, a leader of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. He would not be humiliated by a species as weak and insignificant as humans. But the reality of the situation was undeniable. His fleet was crippled, his forces in disarray. There was no victory to be had here, only survival. "Admiral Hayes," Ziek replied through gritted teeth, "you may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." With a bitter taste in his mouth, Ziek gave the order to retreat. One by one, the Thean ships disengaged and began their slow withdrawal from the battlefield. The humans, true to their word, did not pursue. They simply watched as the once mighty Thean fleet fled in disgrace. On the Resolute, Hayes allowed himself a small smile. The battle had been won, but he knew Ziek was right about one thing: the war was far from over. "Captain Roar," Hayes said, turning to his second-in-command, "begin preparations for the next phase. The Thians won't give up that easily." Roar nodded, his eyes filled with determination. "Yes, sir. We'll be ready." As the last of the Thean ships disappeared into hyperspace, the crew of the Resolute erupted into cheers. They had done the impossible. They had faced the strongest force in the galaxy and come out victorious. But even as they celebrated, Hayes couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Humanity had shown the galaxy their strength, but now they would need to defend it. The Thians would return, stronger and more prepared than before. But Hayes was confident in one thing: humanity would be ready. The moment the humans had responded, everything had changed. The galaxy would never be the same again. The calm before the storm. The aftermath of the battle rippled across the galaxy like a tidal wave. News of the Thean defeat at the hands of humanity spread quickly, igniting shock and disbelief among the countless species who had once viewed humans as inferior. No one had expected the primitive race from the outer rim of the galaxy to not only hold their own against the mighty Thean Empire, but to force them into retreat. On Earth, however, there was little time for celebration. While the human fleet had won a decisive victory, Admiral Hayes knew that the Thians would be back. Their next move wouldn't be a conventional attack. They had learned to fear human ingenuity, and they wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Hayes stood in the war room of the Terran Defense Command, surrounded by holographic displays and a team of strategists. Maps of the galaxy filled the room, showing the vast expanse of the Thean Empire and the much smaller territories controlled by the fledgling Terran Republic. "We have a narrow window of opportunity," Hayes began, his voice steady but serious. "The Thians will regroup, and when they do, they'll likely attempt something we're not expecting. We need to prepare for anything." General Sofia Delgado, head of ground forces, spoke up. "They've seen what our fleet can do, but if they land on Earth, our defenses might not hold. We need to reinforce our planetary shield systems and increase the number of orbital platforms." Dr. Elara Klein, lead scientist of the secretive Project Horizon, leaned forward, her fingers tapping on the table. "We also need to continue advancing the energy matrix technology. We've barely scratched the surface of its capabilities." Hayes nodded in agreement. The energy matrix had been the key to their victory, but it was still a prototype, unrefined, and with potential for much greater power. If they could perfect it, it could be humanity's ultimate weapon. "What about diplomacy?" asked Ambassador Jaya Nilsson, her brow furrowed. "The Thians are bound to retaliate, but there are other factions in the galaxy. If we can rally allies to our side, it might make the Thians think twice before launching another full-scale invasion." Hayes crossed his arms, considering the idea. "Allies would help," he admitted, "but the problem is that most of the galaxy still sees us as an unknown quantity. They've been under the Theans' thumb for so long that they're afraid to take a stand. We need to prove to them that it's in their best interest to join us." As the discussions continued, one thing became clear: humanity's survival would depend on more than just military might. They needed to outthink the Thians at every turn, strategically, technologically, and diplomatically. In the following weeks, Earth became a hive of activity. Factories worked around the clock to build new ships, upgrade existing ones, and produce advanced weaponry. Scientists pushed the limits of human knowledge, developing new technologies and refining the energy matrix. And in the political arena, ambassadors and envoys reached out to other species, quietly building alliances and gathering support. But not everyone was convinced that humanity could survive another attack. In the depths of space, Commander ZX seethed aboard the Imperator, watching as his fleet limped back to Thean space. His pride had been shattered, and his reputation was in tatters. The once invincible commander had been humbled by a species he had once considered beneath his notice. "How could this happen?" he growled, pacing the length of the command deck. "How could humans, a species so young and inexperienced, defeat us?" Lieutenant Sol, ever loyal, approached cautiously. "Their technology is unpredictable, sir. They have a way of adapting that we've never encountered before. Perhaps we underestimated them." ZX stopped, glaring at the tactical map that displayed the human-controlled territories. "We won't underestimate them again," he vowed. "But we won't strike them directly either." Sol raised an eyebrow, uncertain of ZX's meaning. "What do you propose, Commander?" ZX's mandibles curled into what passed for a grin among his species. "We'll hit them where they least expect it. Not with brute force, but with subtlety. The humans may be clever, but they are also emotional, irrational. We'll exploit that." He turned to his officers, his voice cold and calculating. "Prepare our agents. We'll infiltrate their ranks, sabotage their efforts from within. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late." While humanity fortified its defenses and reached out for allies, the Theans began to execute their shadow war. Sleeper agents, mercenaries, and infiltrators were dispatched to human territories, blending into society, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sabotage, misinformation, and assassination would be their weapons of choice. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Hayes received a report that would change everything. It had come from one of the outer colonies, a small, unremarkable mining outpost on the edge of human space. The message was brief but clear. They had detected Thean ships massing in a distant sector, well beyond human space. "What are they doing out there?" Hayes muttered to himself, staring at the report. "It doesn't make sense. They should be focusing on us, not gathering in some remote part of the galaxy." Ruar, standing beside him, offered his thoughts. "It could be a trap, Admiral. They might be trying to lure us away from Earth." Or, Hayes said, his eyes narrowing, "they found something they think will turn the tide in their favor." He turned to Ruar, his decision made. "Assemble a scouting fleet. I want eyes on that system as soon as possible. Whatever the Theans are up to, we need to know before they make their next move." As the scouting fleet prepared to depart, the tension across human space continued to build. The galaxy was holding its breath, waiting for the next move in a war that was no longer about territory or resources. It was about survival. Hayes knew that the coming weeks would be critical. The Theans were planning something, and whatever it was, humanity needed to be ready. The future of Earth and its people hung in the balance, and one wrong move could bring everything crushing down. The Thean Gambit. The scouting fleet slipped into the void of space, navigating through uncharted territories toward the mysterious sector where the Theans were rumored to be gathering. At the helm of the lead ship, Captain Leona Greer monitored the readings with her crew, eyes glued to the vast expanse ahead. "This doesn't feel right," Greer muttered under her breath, eyeing the blank screen. "If the Theans are here, they're hiding well." Her first officer, Lieutenant Vargas, stood beside her. "Maybe the intel was bad," he suggested. "It could be a diversion, like Admiral Hayes suspected." "Maybe," Greer replied, "but we're not taking any chances. Maintain cloak, and keep scanning for any unusual activity. I don't want us walking into a trap." The fleet pressed forward, their stealth systems masking them from potential detection. Hours passed without a single blip on the scanners, but the tension among the crew only grew. The silence was unnerving, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Suddenly, A faint signal appeared on the edge of their scanners. It was weak, barely detectable, but unmistakably of Thean origin. "We've got something," Vargas called out. "Thean signatures, but they're faint. Looks like a small convoy, possibly transporting something." Gria's instincts kicked in, moving closer, but keep our distance. "I want to see what they're up to before we make any decisions." The human fleet carefully approached the convoy, keeping their cloaking systems active as they neared the Thean vessels. The convoy consisted of several small ships, heavily armored, but not particularly well armed. What caught Gria's attention, however, wasn't the size of the convoy, it was the cargo. A massive container ship floated in the middle of the formation, its hull glowing faintly with a strange energy signature. "What the hell is that?" Gria murmured, leaning forward as the readings came in. "Unknown," Vargas replied, his voice laced with concern. "Whatever it is, it's emitting a strange energy field, unlike anything we've seen before. Could be experimental tech." Gria frowned. "If the Theans are moving something this sensitive, it has to be important. We need to figure out what's inside." She turned to her crew. "Prepare to deploy a recon drone. We'll send it in under cloak to scan the cargo ship. Keep your eyes peeled for any sign of detection." The drone was swiftly launched, gliding silently through space toward the Thean convoy. As it neared the container ship, it transmitted detailed readings back to the human fleet. Gria watched intently as the data streamed in. "Energy readings are spiking," Vargas said, his voice tense. "Whatever's inside that ship, it's not just cargo, it's alive." Gria's eyes widened. "Alive? You're telling me they're transporting some kind of creature?" "Possibly," Vargas replied, "but this energy signature, it's too erratic for a biological life form. It's almost like..." He paused as a new set of data appeared on the screen. "Captain, I think we've got a problem. This energy signature matches the one we detected in our previous battles." Gria's mind raced. "You mean the energy matrix?" Vargas nodded grimly. "It looks like the Theans have reverse-engineered the energy matrix. They're transporting a prototype." Gria cursed under her breath. "They must have found a way to replicate it after our last encounter. If they can deploy this tech on a large scale, we'll lose our advantage." She didn't need to think twice. "We need to destroy that ship. If the Theans get their hands on this, they'll turn it against us, and we'll be fighting an enemy with our own technology." Before Gria could give the order, alarms blared across the bridge. The cloaking field flickered, and a warning message flashed on the display. "We've been detected," Vargas shouted. The Thean ships sprang to life, their weapon systems powering up as they scrambled to respond to the unexpected threat. The convoy's escorts turned toward the human fleet, charging their energy cannons and preparing to engage. "Prepare for battle," Gria barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Deploy fighters and focus all fire on that container ship. We cannot let it escape." The human fleet uncloaked, weapons blazing as they opened fire on the Thean convoy. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as the battle unfolded. Gria's ship led the charge, targeting the container ship with precision strikes in an attempt to cripple it before it could jump to hyperspace. The Theans, caught off guard, mounted a fierce defense. Their ships swarmed around the container vessel, trying to protect it from the relentless human assault. But the human fleet was determined. This battle wasn't just about survival. It was about preventing the Theans from gaining a game-changing advantage. Gria watched as her crew worked tirelessly to disable the container ship's engines. The human ships took heavy damage, but they pressed forward, refusing to back down. "Focus all fire on the engines," Gria ordered, her fists clenched as the tension in the room reached a fever pitch. The barrage of firepower finally paid off. The container ship's engines sputtered and died, leaving the massive vessel stranded in space. But as the Theans scrambled to protect their cargo, a new problem emerged. "Captain," Vargas shouted, pointing at the display, "the energy matrix is destabilizing. If it blows, We'll be caught in the blast radius. Greer's heart raced. All ships fall back. Get clear of the container ship. As the human fleet retreated, the energy readings from the container ship spiked dangerously. The energy matrix, unstable and overcharged, began to overload. Seconds later, the ship exploded in a blinding flash of light, sending shockwaves through space. The explosion was so massive that it sent debris scattering in all directions, tearing through Thean and human ships alike. But as the light faded and the shockwaves subsided, it became clear that the battle was over. The human fleet, battered but victorious, had prevented the Theans from escaping with the energy matrix, but the cost had been high. Several ships had been lost, and the rest of the fleet was heavily damaged. Greer exhaled, her body sagging with exhaustion. "We did it," she said softly. "But this isn't over. The Thians will be back, and next time, they'll be more prepared." Back on Earth, Admiral Hayes received the news of the battle's outcome. The Thians had been stopped for now, but the revelation that they were attempting to replicate human technology was a sobering reminder of the stakes. "They're learning," Hayes muttered, staring at the report. "And if they succeed, we'll be facing an enemy armed with the very weapon we've relied on to survive." The war had entered a new phase, one in which humanity's greatest strength had become a double-edged sword. The race was on to refine the energy matrix, to stay one step ahead of the Theans, because the next battle would determine the fate of the galaxy. The war had entered a new phase, one in which humanity's greatest strength had become a double-edged sword. The race was on to refine the energy matrix, to stay one step ahead of the Theans, because the next battle would determine the fate of the galaxy. Humanity's gamble. The aftermath of the battle left Captain Greer's fleet limping back to the safety of human-controlled space. Repairs were underway, but the weight of the situation pressed on her crew. Their victory came at a cost, and with the Theans replicating human technology, it was only a matter of time before the balance of power shifted. In the command center on Earth, Admiral Hayes gathered with the top minds of the United Earth Alliance. The atmosphere was tense as they pored over reports and scanned data. "Captain Greer's team did well," Hayes began, addressing the room. "But as you can see, the Thians are adapting. They're learning fast, and if they succeed in fully reverse engineering the energy matrix, we won't stand a chance." The lead scientist, Dr. Jules Wexler, stood up, his voice carrying a nervous energy. "We've been running simulations based on the data from Greer's recon drone. The Thians are close, too close. We estimate they're within months of deploying a working prototype of the matrix." The room went silent, a collective realization dawning over the group. Months wasn't enough time to prepare for a defense against their own weapon. "We need to strike before they perfect it," Hayes said, breaking the silence. "We can't allow them to fully weaponize our own technology against us." "But how?" one of the fleet commanders asked. "We've seen the lengths they've gone to in hiding their operations, and with our ships spread thin across multiple fronts, we can't risk a full-scale assault." Hayes turned to Dr. Wexler. "That's where your team comes in. We need a breakthrough, something that can turn the tide in our favor before they finish their work." Dr. Wexler hesitated before responding. "There is one possibility. It's risky, but it could buy us the time we need." The room leaned in, listening intently. "We've been working on an advanced version of the energy matrix, one that would allow us to manipulate it in ways we've never attempted. Essentially, we would be creating a controlled detonation on a scale large enough to disable their research centers. A precise strike could wipe out their technology and stall their efforts." Admiral Hayes frowned. "And the risks?" "It's highly experimental," Wexler admitted. "We've never tested it in a live environment. The energy required is immense, and if something goes wrong, it could cause catastrophic damage, not just to the Theans, but to our fleet as well." "But if it works?" Hayes asked. "If it works," Wexler said, "we would cripple their entire research infrastructure. It could delay their progress by years." The room fell silent again as the weight of the decision settled in. Finally, Hayes spoke. We don't have any other choice. Prepare the Matrix for deployment. We'll coordinate with Captain Greer's fleet for the operation." Several weeks later, the newly modified energy matrix was ready for its first, and possibly last, test. Captain Greer's fleet had been repaired and was en route to a hidden Thean research facility deep in contested space. The mission was clear: deploy the matrix, disrupt their operations, and buy humanity the time it desperately needed. Greer stood on the bridge of her flagship, staring at the holographic display of their target. It was heavily guarded, with a massive defense grid surrounding the facility. "We're not getting through that without a fight," Vargas remarked, his voice grim. Greer nodded. "We won't have to. Once we deploy the Matrix, the facility will be vulnerable. The challenge is getting close enough to use it." The fleet approached the Thean research facility under cloak, but the defenses were formidable. Every movement had to be calculated, every decision precise. One mistake, and the entire mission could fail. As they neared the facility, Greer's nerves were on edge. She knew this mission could be their last. The energy matrix was powerful, but unpredictable. There was no guarantee it would work, and if it failed, it would be the humans who paid the price. Entering the target zone, one of the officers reported, "Energy levels are stable. Ready to deploy the matrix on your command, Captain." Greer glanced at Vargas. "This is it." Vargas met her gaze, the unspoken weight of their task hanging between them. "Let's hope Wexler's tech holds up." Greer turned back to the crew. "All ships, prepare for engagement. We're going in hot." The human fleet dropped its cloak, and within seconds, the Thean defense grid was active. Energy blasts lit up the space around them as the Theans scrambled to respond to the sudden attack. "Shields up. Divert all power to forward defenses," Greer ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. The battle was fierce, with the Thean ships converging on the human fleet in a desperate attempt to protect their facility. But the humans pressed on, determined to see the mission through. "Deploy the Matrix," Greer commanded as they reached the edge of the facility's defenses. "Now." A sleek, glowing object was launched from the human flagship, streaking toward the Thean research facility. The energy readings from the Matrix began to spike as it neared the target. "All ships, fall back," Greer ordered. "Get clear of the blast zone." The human fleet retreated as fast as they could, dodging fire from the Theans as the Matrix drew closer to the facility. The seconds ticked by agonizingly slowly, each one stretching into eternity. And then it happened. A brilliant flash of light erupted from the facility as the energy matrix detonated. The blast was unlike anything Greer had ever seen, a pulse of pure energy that expanded outward, engulfing the Thean ships and defenses in a blinding wave of destruction. For a moment, everything was silent. The Thean ships stopped firing, their systems overloaded by the energy surge. The research facility itself was torn apart, debris scattering into the void of space. But as the light faded, Greer realized something was wrong. The energy readings were continuing to spike, far beyond what the team had anticipated. "Captain, the Matrix is destabilizing," Vargas shouted. "We're too close." Greer's heart pounded in her chest. "All ships, emergency jump. Get us out of here." The human fleet scrambled to activate their warp drives, but the energy field was expanding too quickly. The Matrix had created a chain reaction, threatening to consume everything in its path. Just as it seemed like the fleet would be caught in the blast, the warp drives kicked in. Greer's ship, along with the rest of the fleet, jumped to safety, leaving the chaos behind. Back on Earth, Admiral Hayes waited anxiously for news. When the report finally came through, he breathed a sigh of relief. The mission had been a success. The Thean research facility was destroyed, and their progress on the energy matrix had been set back by years. But the cost had been steep, and the war was far from over. Hayes stared out the window of his office, the weight of the conflict heavy on his shoulders. The gamble had paid off for now, but he knew that the next challenge was just around the corner. And this time, humanity would need more than just ingenuity to survive.